2 years ago, I almost failed a year of medical school. I was working all hours of the day, but I was still falling behind. I realized that I was about to blow my chances of becoming a doctor, so I decided I needed to make some changes, and the first thing I looked at was why I was working so hard and getting nowhere. In this process, I discovered a system that got me high distinctions and an award in medical school. So in this video, I'll show you the changes I made and the ultra simple time management system that I use to achieve all of my goals. But in order to use this system, you need to understand the problem that causes 90% of people to waste all of their time. Imagine you drop a sniper with a loaded gun in the middle of a completely empty field and told them to shoot something, anything at all. They could look around, but there'd be no obvious target in sight. And what would most likely happen is they'd spend most of their time trying to find something to aim at and the rest of their time randomly shooting in places hoping to hit something. The problem is that when we come home after a long day, we often put ourselves in the position of that sniper. We don't give ourselves clear directions on what to do, which means that we spend so much time deciding what to work on or waste our time working on far too many different things. So what's the solution to this? Well, I realized that if I wanted to do well in medical school, I needed to stop taking shots at random targets and decide exactly where my target would be. This meant that all I had to do was prioritize one key thing to do each day. And I realized that when I started doing this, I was able to be so much more productive because I had a clear direction. But making this change revealed another problem that I've seen so many people make, and it makes it impossible to be productive. Imagine if you sat down to do some work, but before you started, you took a sleeping pill, 5 shots of vodka, and ate a whole pizza. While this sounds like a great Friday night, trying to work in this state would be impossible. If you managed to stay awake, you'd be slurring your words and barely able to write a sentence. Obviously, this is an extreme example, but a lot of the time I was doing this to myself to a lesser extent without even realizing it. You see, I'd come home from a long day and try to force myself to work basically drunk. I'd be so exhausted from the day that even if I had a clear direction to work in, I'd hardly be productive because I just couldn't concentrate. But there are 2 solutions to this that can instantly fix this problem and allow you to be consistently productive. Intuitively, we understand that some types of work like studying require more brain power to do than other types of work like doing emails. I like to call this the cognitive requirement of work. The problem is that when I was trying to do work when I came home, I had low energy, which meant that my brain simply couldn't handle the high cognitive requirement work. The first solution to this is to match your schedule to your energy. For example, I started studying earlier in the day when I had more energy, and I scheduled emails and messages to do later in the day when I had less energy. But there are some days where this just doesn't work because you have too much difficult work to do or you don't have time to work in the morning, and that's where the second solution comes in. On a lot of these days, I would end up coming home and procrastinating instead of doing work, which would drain my energy even more. But I slowly realized that energy is actually the key to getting work done. As a result, instead of trying to do work when I got home, I'd do things like exercise or meditation instead that would replenish my energy. This meant that I was so much more productive because instead of procrastinating, I'd do some active recovery and then I'd be able to do a burst of ultra effective work that I wouldn't have been able to do otherwise. But even after I made these changes, I was still struggling to be productive and consistent, and I just couldn't figure out why. The problem was actually the way I was scheduling things into my calendar, and solving it allowed me to completely eliminate procrastination from my life. Imagine this, you come home from a long day and you look at the work that you need to do on your schedule. Your calendar says you're supposed to start at 4:30 and it's only 4:20, so you pull out your phone to relax. Before you know it, it's 4:30 and you're in the middle of a video, so you just want to finish it. But then you watch a few more and all of a sudden it's 4:36, so you might as well start at 4:45 because that's only 9 minutes away. Without you even realizing it, all of a sudden it's 4:48 and you don't even feel like doing the thing you needed to anymore. You tell yourself you'll start at 5, but then you realize that you have something on at 5:30 and you kind of need an hour to do it anyway, so you might as well leave it to tomorrow. In a flash, you've wasted an hour and you feel terrible because you've piled more work onto your future self. But there are 2 key solutions here that can completely eliminate this problem. You see, the first problem is that when you treat your schedules as exact timings, you create opportunities for procrastination and distractions that can hijack the whole thing. The moment you decide to wait until 4:30 to start is actually the moment that your procrastination spiral starts. starts. The secret to solving this is to think of your schedule as estimated timings and to completely get rid of the idea of a start time in your head. For example, if you arrive at your desk at 4:25 and you have a task to do, start it straight away, because this will allow you to avoid procrastination and build momentum that can help you topple your task like dominoes. The second solution was enlightening for me when I realized it, and it helped me reduce the amount of stress I was under enormously. Imagine there are two people working on a task. Gary works on it for 10 minutes each day, whereas Greg works on it for 1 hour on the weekend. The thing is, at the end of the week, Gary will still have worked on the task for 10 minutes longer than Greg, and he'll have extra time on his weekend to spend. The problem is that we often think to ourselves that small pockets of time aren't useful, and we end up spending that time on our phones or on social media, which doesn't help us in any way. Instead, try to make the most of these gaps and prepare tasks to do in these idle moments, because those small pockets of 5 to 10 to 15 to 20 minutes will genuinely add up so much over the course of a week and will ease your stress enormously. The time you save doing this is the time that you can spend genuinely relaxing, and that's why I find it to be so important. These changes will guaranteed improve your productivity, but it doesn't matter if you're working all hours of the day if you don't know how to work. So watch this video on how you can use your time working effectively.